Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome again. Welcome. We can't say welcome enough. Welcome to those of you all who were able to join us today. And welcome to those of you all who will be watching this later on in the recording. Welcome to our Q&A, our live session that we are talking about HEARTspeak's exciting launch of our summer series, our 6-week summer series entitled Showing Up, Creating Authentic Space for Anti-Racist Dialogue in Academia. And boy, do we know we are over time and due time for that discussion. So this is how today is going to go. We're going to share, Kenya and I are going to share a little bit about our work, why we do this work, why we started this work, where we're at in this work and our journey in anti-racism, talk a little bit more and dig deeper about why we felt the need to start such a summer series specific to the needs of academia and what we're seeing, what we've experienced, and what many of the folks in our network experience, and then answer many of the questions that folks have submitted to us through this process. We hope that answering those questions will answer questions that some of you all have here today. Feel free to pop in questions into the chat about the summer series itself, about our work, and we'll have our team at Full Circle and our HEARTspeak team answer those questions for you. So let's get started. I already started talking and didn't introduce myself. And so I am Kim Baker. I am half and co-founder of Full Circle Strategies, who has developed this amazing, phenomenal experience entitled HEARTspeak, which you will hear and get to know more about. I'll also let my sister, my actual real sister, and fellow co-founder of Full Circle Strategies, introduce herself as well.
Good morning, y'all. We haven't said that in a long time. We used to say that all the time. I'm like, oh, we haven't said that in a while. We're actual sisters.
Actual sisters.
Welcome. I'm glad you all are here. Just take a minute to just breathe. You made it here. I know there's a lot of curiosity and anticipation around this. You're thinking about the work that you're trying to do in your own spaces. So a lot going on, I would imagine. So we just really want to normalize that all the fields make a lot of sense. But I'm Kenya Minot, and I guess I can just kick him, just go ahead and say kind of what brought us here, what brought me here.
Yes.
This particular opportunity is super, super important. And so I am in my 20th year in teaching in higher education. So 10-year sociology professor with Community College, College of Southern Nevada. So part of the Nevada system of higher education. Also have been adjunct with University of Houston and the Graduate College of Social Work, and adjunct at Baylor School of Social Work as well. And so lots of different experiences over the decades, I can say that now, of talking and connecting with colleagues, but also talking and cultivating and offering opportunities to students. And so my journey really is a culmination of not just the fact that I'm a social worker and therefore am passionate about social justice issues, but I've spent a lot of time in spaces where I've had to mentor, where I had to offer things to individuals who are trying to start their journey, to do some good work, right? And to take, hopefully with them into their professional settings, some skills. And so this marriage between higher ed and HEARTspeak is a reflection of what we've seen in our spaces. Kim is also in academia. And so what we've seen in our spaces and what we now know about the work of HEARTspeak. So HEARTspeak stands for Holistically Engaging in Anti-Racist Transformation. And one of the things that was critical about starting this particular program was we really wanted to think about how do we operationalize what race equity looks like? What does it look like in practice? What does it look like to be in community with other people who are committed to centering equity in their workspaces, right? And so from an operational standpoint, that starts first with how do we talk about this, right? How do we engage in real, deep truth telling and authentic dialogue? That is foundational to anything, any lists, any logic models, any stacks of paper we can accumulate around what the plan is, what the strategy is. Do we feel comfortable and do we have the individual capacity to hold space and talk about this thing that we've been avoiding for so long, right? And so throughout my interactions with students and creating space and figuring out where they had the bandwidth to do this as learners, it just became even more critical that we need to create opportunities for our new young professionals. People are going into their careers, right? And I feel, and I only can speak from the social work perspective. I feel like we make assumptions about what they're capable of doing interpersonally, right? And kind of leave them to just sort of go do it. And so for me, this is about recognizing what students need, but also recognizing what stops us from being able to do it. Because I think that's what's really coming up. It's not that there isn't a willingness to center equity. I feel like there may be some trepidation, some anxiety around how do I do this? And I don't want to fail at doing this, right? I want to get this right, right? And so all of those things are lingering in the background. And so we talked about this for months now, our whole team, about like, what can we do and where can we make impact first? And we chose to make impact in the space of higher education. So I'll turn it over to Kim and she can share what got her here to this moment as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kenya. So very similar to what Kenya was describing, her role and the many versatile roles that she holds in different academic spaces, right? And things that she's observed. I can attest that that has been my same experience. I am a professor here at the University of Texas School of Public Health and have been here for 8 years. I actually got my doctorate here and stayed. And so been here in this space for quite a while, right? Whether it's advising students, teaching classes, doing research, engaging in practice-based activities, the space of academia lends itself to a whole new understanding of how we approach anti-racism, right? Because we can come at it from so many different angles. And so but what's important and what's integral, as Kenya was alluding to, is that space that stops us from moving forward, that space that stops us at surface level diversity issues that we all do in our institutions. What do we need to do more to ensure that our institutions are inclusive and providing equitable and just service to our students, that our faculty are able to show up in ways that make them whole, right? And that the people in the communities that we serve are able to feel that as well. And honestly, for me specifically, because I work in public health, we talk about health disparities, we talk about health outcomes that are disproportionately impacting communities that have been marginalized by racism and oppression. However, the lack of attention around our work sometimes in public health to solve those issues is because we haven't received a firm understanding of how we show up and do our research, how we show up and perform practice, how we show up and train the next generation of health practitioners, whether they be through med school, nursing school, public health, neuroscientists, how we ask the questions that take us to the next place. And a huge part of that is our understanding of how we're practicing our own cultural humility, how we're practicing our own authentic dialogue and engagement. Many of the things that we'll be talking a lot about through this 6-week summer session. We're just excited. We're super excited to be here with you all and to share with you all this opportunity.
So if you're just joining or you came in on the tail end of us speaking, welcome. We are just sharing a little bit about how we got here. We want to touch on, before we get into like the mechanics of the 6-week session, we definitely want to touch on some of what we've seen as successors in this work, and then some challenges that we see. And our goal in sharing that is, I really want to normalize this for y'all, right? I know that, first of all, thank you for completing the registration and being so transparent and talking about what your stated needs are, what your questions might be. So we want to try to speak to some of that, but also just to let you know that many organizations across the country are grappling with very similar things as you. And so when we're not planning like one-off summer sessions, we're typically working in year-long engagements with different organizations around the country who have committed to doing this. And so one of the things that we do know that is successful and that works is that it is a long-term commitment, right? People who are willing to invest long-term in this work are going to be the ones that are going to not only see differences in their workplace culture and how they deliver services and how they work with clients and how they work with students, but they're also going to create more sustainable change, things that are going to stand the test of time and the tensions and the growing pains around how we do this, because there is no destination when we practice equity. It is a continuation of learning, growing, understanding. I also want to level set and frame our discussion and say that this is specifically intended for those who are working in higher education spaces. Whether you're in a classroom, whether you're doing more of an admin role or a professional role, we really are targeting this space. And so if you are here and you're trying to get information and understand how it fits into your world that's outside of higher education, that is okay, right? Because we offer services to everyone, right? But this particular 6-week course will be framed around what does it look like to do this in a higher ed setting. So I'll kick it off and I'll share a couple of challenges that we've seen and a couple of successors, and then I'll hand it back over to Kim. I've named one. So one success is the long-term commitment. Another thing that has been successful that is part of this conversation today is folks really being in touch with what got them to where they are, right? Their own journey, right? And being able to personalize this work, right? And so moving from this idea of seeing it solely as an intellectual science or an academic science into seeing this as deep personal work that really impacts me, my family, right? Even though we're talking about what you do in your workplace, this has to be personal. And so for individuals willing to cross that threshold and be vulnerable enough to see how they need to humanize this work are often the ones who are building the muscle and really doing some deep change, right? And really doing some deep work. Challenges, I really was excited about sharing this because I know how our spaces can be, in university settings. And so this sense of urgency and rushing to get at something and rushing to create something, rushing to have an outcome, rushing to have a deliverable gets in the way of honestly gets in the way of doing the work. The very thing you're trying to do, and this is what we've seen with many of our clients over the last several years that we've been doing this, is when they try to rush and move too fast, right? And not pay attention to their own personal journey, not paying attention to things like cultural humility and getting caught up in what the outcome is going to be without really being okay with the discomfort of not knowing, that's what gets in the way. That's a huge challenge for folks. And so if you've been not giving yourself grace or beating up on yourself like we should be further along than this. Now, let me be clear. Systemic racism is an urgent issue. It is an urgent matter, but you have to be purposeful in the work. You have to, and everything has a season. And we're not going to get there if we hold our breath, close our eyes, and rush to the finish line, right? And that's like really what it looks like and what it feels like when we're working with organizations, members of organizations who are fearful of the unknown, right? You have to embrace the uncertainty and the unknown that comes with this work. Kim, what do you want to offer around challenges and success?
I'm just right. I'm just over here nodding in agreement and amening and all of that. Absolutely. And so I will second that challenge because it leads to so many other challenges. I think that may be probably the major challenge that we see in academic spaces is this sense of urgency to show that we've done something and we did it and we can move from this now, right? And because that is a huge problem, it presents other problems, right? It seems to show that we are performing equity and diversity and not really doing the hard work of getting into the discomfort and really challenging, our institutional values and the way we show up and the way we do work and the way our policies are implemented and how do we confront policies that have inequitable outcomes like admissions and faculty hiring and searching, right? And so those are the things that stem from this sense of urgency. Because if you're wanting to check a box or to say you've completed this task and we've moved on from that, we have this great diversity committee and they do events and they complete these tasks, right? That is not the long-term commitment necessary, right, to address systemic embedded issues that really are the fabric of many of our institutions, right? When we even think about academia and what, how we're rewarded, right? We're rewarded, specifically faculty, we're rewarded for our expertise and our knowledge that we share with other experts, right? Which create these silos. And so being about the business of anti-racism in many ways challenge the very role that we play in our institutions. And so that's a lot of discomfort that we have to sit with and think about. And then also to our students who are watching, right? Our students of this generation who in some ways know more about what's needed to do this work can confront that as well for us. And as and I know me as being a faculty and a teacher, sometimes that's uncomfortable, right? And so, but that's all part of this practice of cultural humility. And it's really, really, really key to the work, key to showing up. And so you'll continue to hear that because that theme is important. And that's really why we named the series Showing Up, because it means so much and it resonates in so many different ways. How are we showing up?
I'll give one quick example before we break down the course series. We're working with a medium-sized university that will remain nameless, but they're 2 time zones away from us in Houston. And their immediate knee-jerk reaction to their commitment to equity was really around creating a public commitment. They went to public commitment first, which seemingly sounds like what you should do, right? We need to let folks know we're committed to this. We need to let the public know that we're committed to this. And what ultimately happened was the president of the university tasked every academic unit to come up with their strategic plan for equity. Many of these folks have not even sat down to the table to have a conversation with each other, right? Because they're moving so fast, they're doing their own stuff, right? And so we come in sort of halfway through this call to action from the university president to start meeting with the deans and all these different folks. And you know how we have spent this entire year, them talking about their own personal experiences with equity and inequities, them talking about the hesitancy of how to hold conversation in classrooms, how to hold conversations with colleagues, right? How to call things out, right? And so even though they came up with these plans that look very technical and academic and a lot of jargon, and my first thought was, what is all this? Like, y'all sound smart. That's cool. But we get on Zoom and it's a complete opposite of what is on paper and what they're representing from their divisions and their departments and their colleges, right? So that's an example of like this gap between what we say we want to do, what we say we're committed to what do I feel like I have the capacity to do? And is it okay for me to admit that I don't know that I have the capacity to do this, right? And so we're saying, yes, you need to admit that. We got to start in truth. We got to start in the truth of this. I also want to say this because this was a question. This is probably one of the first questions I want to react to. And I so appreciate the question. But Kim said something that made me remember this space really does need to be for faculty and professional and academic faculty. There are definitely spaces that Full Circle interfaces with that creates enormous opportunities for students. However, we want to make sure we're addressing the system, right? Versus making space for students to be a part of this. I'm sure they would love it and they would have, they would have such a rich experience, but we really need for professionals like the staff to show up. We need for faculty to show up, right? Because we need to think about how each of us contribute to this system that we're trying to change or we're trying to improve, right? And so I wanted to just lay that out there. So in the time that we have left, the first thing I want to do is just sort of name out what the structure is. So it'll be a 6-week course and details about registration and how you pay. The course is $1,500 per participant, but we haven't released the link. And so we just ask that you look forward to receiving communication and guidance around how you pay for registration, how we accept those payments, what that looks like. I would imagine some folks will go through their place of work. Some people may not. Some people may pay on their own. And so we will provide everyone who is here, including individuals who did not get a chance to participate, but may have shared their contact information with us. We will put all that out within a week. So next Friday, that information will go live and you'll be able to go ahead and reserve your spot for the 6-week session. It will start on June 8th, and that is a Wednesday. All of these will happen on Wednesdays. The last session will be on July 13th. They will be 3-hour sessions each week, okay? One of the things we really wanted to emphasize are what the potential outcomes for this, what we hope you all get out of this and what we get out of this as a community, right? We want you to walk away with some effective skills on how to develop your capacity for navigating conversations around anti-racism and how you center equity in your workplace, right? So we will teach you and practice with you what these skills look like and what they look like within the context of the work that you do, right? The other thing that we hope you take away from this is the opportunity to connect with other professionals that you'll meet through this series who are trying to do work where they are, right? And so a part of this is about not feeling like you're by yourself, right? One of the things that we encourage you to do is invite someone else from your institution to take this course with you. It creates an accountability partner, if you will, right? Oftentimes when people sign up for things like this, is important to have almost a quorum of folks who can come and attend and figure out like how to continue to have deeper conversations with folks back in your school or in your institutions. The other thing that will happen is you will have access to our resources and become a part of our network, right? And so we're piloting something called Anti-Racist Dialogue Leaders. And so this course will ultimately provide you with that certificate of being a dialogue leader, right? And so this is our pilot at doing community-facing work. At Full Circle, we typically work internally with one organization at a time. We're opening this up because we recognize that some folks may be a part of organizations that may not be ready to commit totally, but they're ready to do the work and move it forward. And so we are going to, this will be the culmination of you all becoming anti-racist dialogue leaders. You will have access to our learning management system, tools, and we hope that we will convene that after the summer session throughout the academic year to just touch base with you, check on you, see how things are going, and hopefully you can lend your experiences and your key learnings to the next summer session in 2023, right? And then finally is an opportunity to just figure out how to bring your whole self, right, into the work experience. What does that look like? Right? So a lot of critical self-reflection, a lot of topics geared to help you think deeply about what it means to hold this space and have these conversations. What are some of the characteristics I need to internalize in order to do this, in order to create these opportunities? So that's what folks can look forward to with this. Kim, did you want to add anything? Even Margaret, if you wanted to add something, Margaret will be joining us. I'm excited. She's our communication strategist. And so helps us with engagement externally, but also is a very experienced professor and also HEARTspeak trainer. And so it'll be 4 of us all together providing this rich experience over the course of 6 weeks. But if either of you have anything to add to sort of wrap up some of the details, please do.
Nothing to add for me, just knowing that if you all have questions, even about the process, please feel free to reach out. Margaret will let you know how to do that to us as you're preparing to decide if you will join us, which we hope you will. We really believe that it will be a transformative experience, right? And not a checkbox experience. And so we look forward to working with you all and others. So please also share what you hear or heard here today with others as well. Thank y'all so much for joining.
There were any burning questions that didn't get addressed in how we set things up or what we covered, please throw them in the chat if you have time, and we'll try to answer them before folks hop off. But we appreciate y'all being here and giving us your undivided attention, and excited to have folks sign up for the course. Yes, it'll be virtual. Yep, it'll be virtual. Absolutely. Good question. We will have space for 25 folks. Another excellent question. Yeah. And that is so that we can keep it intimate enough to really practice the authentic dialogue. We don't want it to be these big, monstrous audiences. So yes, we will cap it at 25. Other questions y'all might have? All right. Well, thank you for showing up, and reach out to us if anything else comes up. Look forward to the information on registering for the actual course and payment instructions, and we hope to see y'all in June.
All right, y'all have a good one.